Hey everyone, it's Blockchain Bernie here. Object store versus file system. So in this video, we're going to talk about what actually is an object store and what is a file system. And I start obviously with, outside of the blockchain world, and then we think, what does this mean within the blockchain world, right? So I'll dive into these details, and it might be surprising to you that file systems actually have never been done in the blockchain world, right? And because it's a very, a very hard problem to solve in the blockchain world, right? So some surprising aspects in here, and I'll recommend, watch the video all the way to the end. So what is the difference between an object store and a file system? So one of the simplest things is, well, you can build an object store on top of a file system, but you cannot build a file system on top of an object store, right? So a file system is kind of more the generalized concept, and the object store is a more specialized concept. So with the term object store, and actually with my history, back in the 90s, I worked on a product called Object Store back in the day, and we built a decentralized system for service provisioning for Deutsche Telekom back in the day, and we used actually Object Store, which back in the day was just an object-oriented database management system, right? So everything was object-oriented back in the day, and they thought like, well, we also need object-oriented database management systems. But, they kind of fell out of fashion after some time. Today, the term object store has a different meaning, right? And it's something that has been pioneered by Amazon Web Services with their S3 product, right? So S3 stands for, I don't really know, Simplified Storage System or something like that. So that means you can store large blobs of objects, right? Which is just, it can be gigabytes, it can be megabytes, it can be, it can be really large files, but is one thing that you usually don't modify that often in the middle of it, right? So for example, pictures, JPEGs, right? It's very rare that you take a JPEG and then make modifications in the middle, even if you have like picture management tools like whatever, GIMP or Photoshop or something. You just load the picture into RAM and then you do all your editing there, and then you create a new picture, kind of the edited picture, right? So, and here we have the applications for these object stores, right? They just store a static large file that isn't kind of a database type of thing where we modify stuff in the middle of one large file. It's just, you store it. And the term storage actually implies that, right? Storage is like, the term storage makes you think like, oh, it's long term, right? I have something, I put it in there, and I might need it once a year, right? As your storage where you have all your Christmas decoration in or something like that, right? So these object stores are like that, right? You store something one time, and then if you need to modify something in the middle of it, right? And if that one file is like the list of all your customers and how much have they purchased from you, right? And that list might be a terabyte long if you have a lot of customers, right? But now, this is not like you never modify it, right? It gets modified all the time in, somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of a database type of concept in a sense, right? But the word database also has a lot of weight in the IT world. And, there's all these database management systems, and those are all complex and stuff, but it doesn't have to be a complex database management system involved, right? It's just, if it's just a list, it's just a list of your customers, right? With their names and how much have they purchased from you, it would be just a file. It wouldn't be a complex type of Oracle database or not even MySQL database or something, but you want to make changes in the middle of the file, right? You just want to overwrite like 7 bytes in the middle that describe how much have they purchased from you, right? Even though the file is a terabyte long. And you cannot do that with object stores, right? So object stores are like, you store it once and then you can read it as often as you want and you can delete it at some point in time. With some of them, you can't even delete it, right? There are some archival solutions where you can't delete it, right? Like Arweave or something. But in object stores, you cannot modify stuff in the middle of it, right? That's the whole thing, right? You just cannot. You would have to create a new terabyte file when a customer makes a new order, right? You would have to write a new 1 terabyte file with all the list of your customers and then delete the previous file or object. So as you can see, you know, with this object store, it's special purpose, right? It's great for storing a video. It's great for storing a JPEG, right? It's great for something that's static, that doesn't change, that doesn't need random access, right? So now you hear random access, and that's one thing of our blockchain storage trilemma, right? We want it smart contract native because we want to have it for the smart contract developer available, and we want it random access, and we want it scalable to exabytes and more. And this blockchain storage trilemma hasn't been solved as of today, and that's what we're working on here at Xandeum. So that said, with the file system, that's a different thing. The file system is, first of all, a hierarchical naming scheme. So you have directories and subdirectories or folders or subfolders, however you want to name them. And then those files have names in there. And these files can be large, they can be really huge, but they have random access in the form that you can position the read-write head within the file to any position, and then read any number of bytes within that file, or write and overwrite any number of files within that, any number of bytes within that file. And this file system thing, I don't know when it was invented, but, you know, it is the foundation of all of our IT, right? All software that's been built for mainframes, PCs, servers, Web 2 servers, Web 2 applications, all the servers that serve the apps that you download on your phone, they all have a server part somewhere. And all that is built on file systems, right? And even the phone itself has a file system on its phone, and your Windows PC has it, and your Mac has it, and everything, right? That file system is the basis for everything, and every developer that develops software outside of the blockchain is used to having a file system, right? For decades and decades, we've developed software, super sophisticated software, and it all relies on having a file system in that sense that I just described it. And in the blockchain world, we have some blockchains that have these object stores that I just described. Most of them are not smart contract native in any form, so it's a little bit of a hassle for a smart contract developer then to connect to these object stores and figure out how to, store and retrieve and everything. These things. By the way, object store is also great for backups, right? So backups are, you create them once, it's a large file, you put them somewhere, but you're never going to change something in the middle of it, right? So object stores have, a lot of use cases, but they cannot form the basis for all different types of apps that we have in our current web, which is also called Web 2, right? They all rely on this sort of file systems. And since we don't have file systems on the blockchain yet, all these apps are quite limited, right? right? There's not a single Web 2 app. And think about this fact, right? Not one really successful Web 2 app. And when I say really successful, just look the list at, what websites are visited the most. Not one of a successful Web 2 app has been ported over to Web 3 to make it decentralized. Not a single one. Simply because they all rely on file systems and we don't have them on the blockchain, right? And that's what I think needs to be changed. That's an important problem in the world, because we want all this stuff decentralized. That's the reason blockchain exists. So we want to see all these apps decentralized. That's what we're working on here at Xandeum, building that scalable storage layer for Solana that solves the blockchain storage trilemma with all these three things that I mentioned: smart contract native, scalable to exabytes plus, and random access, file system-like access. All right. Yeah, I hope this was insightful for you. And one more thing. So leave me some comments down here. Ask me questions about what you think about file systems versus object store. Have you heard of these terms before? Are you aware that on your PC and on your Mac, you're having these file systems? Have you ever developed software and know that, almost any piece of software will just, either open a file or a database and, in random access fashion, read and write from them, right? So yeah, I hope, again, this was insightful. I hope this explains a bit more to you on why we think this is a very, very important problem to solve for the world that we're working on here at Xandeum. But for today, thanks so much for watching, guys. Catch you later. Peace.